We'll do something different. I'll not just talk about certain theoretical aspects. I will also share screen and show you at least one real project, and I had mentioned about this project to you in advance. I will show to you the Bichitra project, but before that, I'll quickly take you through how digital humanities started happening in India. You see that different kinds of researchers were beginning to work, even in India, on different, particularly vernacular languages, in which it was important for them to start archiving materials and to start working on and computing on the data that they had received. But institutionally, I'll ask you to take note of two universities and institutes, one of which is Jadavpur University in Kolkata, India, which actually started this course called Digital Humanities. It was being offered by a certain school in the university called SCTR, School of Cultural Texts and Records. The SCTR at Jadavpur University had introduced a course called Digital Humanities and Cultural Informatics. So they started taking up different kinds of manuscripts, digitizing it, archiving it, creating metadata, and then they started creating and working on real-time projects. One of the earlier things they did was actually digitize audio from vinyls and work on different kinds of Indian classical music. Professor Omlan Dashgupta, who was one of the founders of this SCTR's program, was instrumental, and he himself is a classical music lover. He is retired now. He is a classical music lover, and then he started working on those grounds. Gradually, of course, Professor Shukanta Chaudhuri, Professor Emeritus of English at Jadavpur University, started building up more and more. And both of them, along with their entire team, started and introduced this PG diploma course called Digital Humanities and Cultural Informatics. There's also some joke happening in the class. Ripu is giggling, Chandana is giggling, and some kind of a joke happening. As part of which they did the Bichitra project, and we will see the Bichitra project in some time. Also, down south in Bangalore, have any of you heard of Srishti Institute of Art Design? Has any of you heard of Srishti? Srishti is a very interesting institute. Srishti School of Art, Design and Technology. Srishti School of Art, Design and Technology started a program in digital humanities, proper digital humanities, not just new media or new humanities or things like that. They started a proper course in digital humanities. It's in Bangalore. It was being offered under with the affiliation of the University of Mysore, but that program is not a running program anymore. After that, gradually in many IITs, different kinds of digital humanities projects started happening, in which archiving became one of the central issues. New media became one of the very important issues for studying in the humanities. But digital humanities as a discipline started happening in more ways other than establishing real-time departments. So you have to understand that there has been a difference in India between setting up a digital humanities department as contrasted to setting up digital humanities disciplines through different other departments. So for instance, what you are doing at Tejpur University, you don't really have a digital humanities department from what I understand, but you're still practicing digital humanities as a discipline under the Department of Assamese at Tejpur University. Likewise, different schools, institutes, and departments of new media have started taking up projects in digital humanities. They have been doing researches, including the ones at their MPhil and PhD levels, many of which are based on digital humanities. Even when they consciously start off from new media, they often end up being digital humanities. It's important to create a certain kind of a historical narrative and create some kind of a document to, later on look back and see the exact historical trajectory of digital humanities in India. Now, when we keep talking about what digital humanities does in India, it's important to also show you what kind of work is actually being done. And for that, I will now share screen. Okay, can you all see the screen that I'm sharing? It's called Bichitra Online Tagore Varioram.
Yeah, we can see.
Good, good, good. For today and tomorrow, I will talk to you specifically about this website, which has been created by the School of Cultural Texts and Records. which is how the digital humanities program began in this part of the world in Kolkata. This is a Jadavpur University project. Basically, Bichitra is an online Tagore Varioram, as it says, and it has been done by School of Cultural Texts and Records. What is a Varioram? Anybody, because all of you are literature students, anybody knows what a Varioram is? Anybody knows what a Varioram is? Basically, it's some kind of a collection. But in this particular project, in Bangla, it's written Bichitra, Boidutin Robindro Rachana Sambhar. Translated to English, it means Bichitra Online Tagore Varioram. And in Hindi, somebody quickly read up the Hindi. Is anybody quickly?
Visitra Electronic Rabindra Rasanawali,
Correct.
School of Cultural Text and Records.
Correct. So this is basically a project which is done by SCTR at Jadavpur University in collaboration with Vishwabharati Rabindra Bhavan, and this is a Government of India project. So it has been funded by the Government of India. Remember last class when we were talking about the future and prospects, I was telling you how to make pitch presentations in order to take grants. Because unless we get major grants, it would be absolutely impossible to conduct such high-end programs in digital humanities with our own kind of money, with our own kind of funds. So accordingly, this pitch was presented. This project was was pitched to the Government of India Ministry of Culture. Accordingly, this is what we came up with. 47,520 scanned pages of Tagore manuscripts have been inserted into this website in both Bangla and English, along with transcriptions. I will first take you through how the website looks. This is how the website looks. This has different kinds of features, and some of the few important features, I will take you through some of the very important features. Manuscript is one of them. Collation is one of them. And we are calling it a knowledge site. We're not just calling it a website, we're calling it a knowledge site. And anybody can tell me the difference between a website and a knowledge site? Even a commonsensical answer? Nobody? Okay. Yeah, say.
Website basically we can guess that it is the it where data stores, but knowledge side mostly dealt with data, but which I think
But it's
more,
interactive. You can
I
do
don't know
way
what to
beyond.
say.
Yeah, you are right. You're right. It's interactive and you can do way beyond reading material. What you can do here is not just reading material. We
Yes,
also have different kinds of digital tools embedded within the website. I'm showing this project to you as an example of digital humanities in India so that you can take an idea, because eventually, if your department also takes up major projects, this is some of the things that you can do. We will first start talking about the easier things, and then we will talk about the more difficult things that exist in this website. First and foremost, the entire website has been done in three languages: Bangla, English, and Hindi. For our ease of understanding, let us go to the home and the English, which is basically also the landing page. The landing page of Bichitra is the home page, which is an English version. This whole thing has also been done in Bangla. It's the same thing, but the whole thing has been done in Bangla. When we were working on this project, what we actually did was we had a team of people who were working separately in English and separately in Bangla and separately in Hindi. But you can, if you want to now, because times are more advanced than when we finished it off. What you can actually think of doing is you can include some kind of a translating tool in the website, and you can auto translate it and see how it goes. It may not be foolproof, then you might need a team of moderators who will at least be there to moderate if any translation goes wrong, but the initial translation can be machine made. You can think of creating your own tool which can translate from Assamese to English or Hindi or whatever languages. So technically, even if you are creating some kind of a knowledge site, I think it would be expected you do it in Assamese, English, and Hindi. And you can also read the same thing in Hindi. Can you all read the Hindi bit? Same page. So every single page that exists in this knowledge site exists in 3 languages. Can you all see the Hindi page now? Correct. And what are the kinds of headings that we have? What are the kinds of panels that we have? If you want, you can even take a note, because probably even when you try and create your knowledge site in digital humanities, you'll end up doing things like this. What are the different kinds of things we have? One of you just read it out. Okay, no one's helping me, and I can't read Hindi that fluently, so I'll go back to English. So basically, after the home page, this is the team which created Bichitra. This is the Bichitra project. You can read about this project over here. It's taking time. It will come. This is the Bichitra project. This page is important because this is the part which gives you a clear idea of exactly what the project is about. Till date, this is the biggest integrated knowledge site devoted to any author in any language. It comprises most versions of nearly all Rabindranath's works in Bangla and English. It excludes letters, speeches, textbooks, and translations, except Tagore's translations from his own Bengali. Therefore, what are the things that you can include? You can take a note of this, because these are the things which you can include in your knowledge site. And if you're doing it years later, you can also add to it. It includes digital images of virtually all of his manuscripts. And I'm actually telling it. When we write it in the website, we clearly cannot tell you that, this is exact, we have completed everything. We cannot tell it for certain, because 5 years down the line, somebody will come and tell me this manuscript is missing. But which is why we wrote virtually all his manuscripts. But actually, I'm telling you with utmost confidence that every bit of Rabindranath's manuscript has been digitally created as an image and has been uploaded over here. It includes digital images of virtually all his manuscripts and authoritative print versions. It includes 47,520 pages of manuscripts and 91,637 pages of printed books and journals. And remember, when we did it, half the work of we have done both. We have also taken images of all manuscripts that we could lay our hands on, and we have also typed it out and created a machine readable format of every bit of text that we got in the manuscript. So now in this knowledge site, we have both. We have the image and we have the text, which is machine readable. So if somebody wants to work on the nature of the text in itself, which is why you need the image, maybe somebody wants to work on the scribbles and the doodles, you can do it from the manuscript bit. If somebody wants to work only on the written content, you can work on the machine readable bit. Both of it are available on this website. Like I said, we have the plain text transcripts of all these versions. We have a search engine to locate words and phrases in Rabindranath's works. And now this is where we started introducing our first tool. The first tool is a search engine tool, which is after every bit of work that has been incorporated digitally in this knowledge site. Now, suddenly, if we want to locate a work with a specific word or a phrase, and we do not know the work, how do we do it? It's impossible to go from first line search to second line search, going from all the novels to all the short stories and everything. So you have to also, if you work on some other project, include some kind of a search engine which will try and look at words and phrases and different kinds of expressions. Maybe you can also make your search engine image friendly. Image friendly search is not what we did in our project. We did not know how to do image friendly search because, we are also people from the humanities. I am myself from comparative literature, but now the way I see Parthajit sir is a computer engineer himself. If he is working on you in creating these kinds of tools, you can also think of creating, image searches. Is Parthajit sir there in the class? Because I can't see that. I'm focusing on my screen, so I can't see who's there. Is Partha sir there? Okay, I can't understand. Students can tell me if he's there or not, because I can't see that window. I'm only concentrating on this window because I'm sharing the screen. So when all of you sit together, can you all hear me though? There's no response from anybody. Am I audible? Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And can you also see the screen? Because I cannot look at the Teams at the Google Meet window now. Since I'm looking only here, I don't.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
If anything goes wrong, please tell me to stop and repeat, because since I'm not looking at the Google Meet window, I'm looking here. I don't know what's happening there. You can obviously include a search engine to locate words and phrases, and I'm additionally suggesting that if things are fair and fine at your end, you can also think of including an image search engine. Now, the next point is very important. We have a collation engine inserted within this knowledge site to compare different versions of same work at three levels: at the level of a chapter, at the level of an act or a scene, at the level of a paragraph, and also detailed wording. Detailed wording will merge up with the search engine. So when a collation engine and a search engine both are inserted, and we really want to look at the different kinds of differences in words in, say, two editions or two versions of the same work, then the collation engine, which will be functioning at the level of word search, will be taken over by the search engine, which anyway is included to locate words and phrases. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Please give me a response, because I'm not looking at that window.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. If you
Yes,
want
ma'am.
me to, yeah, okay. If you want me to repeat, please ask me to repeat. I am saying the collation engine works at three levels. It works at the broad levels, at the level of a chapter, in case we're looking at a novel or any other kind of an essay, long prose work. At the second level, it works at the level of an act or a scene, as if in a Rabindranath's play. And if it's not a play, if it's some kind of a paragraph, which is some kind of a lesser, shorter prose, but not a big essay, the second level also looks at a paragraph. And the third level looks at a very individual stanza, such as a verse, such as in a poem. And therefore, at the third level, it looks at detailed wordings. When it looks at detailed wordings, at the third level, the collation engine and the search engine merges. It becomes one. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So you have to keep some kind of a possibility of the two tools working separately and the two tools working together. How to program that, Partha sir or whoever's looking after your technological bit will help you with that. Tell me if you've understood the philosophy of what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. Then this website, this knowledge site also has a checklist of the contents of each manuscript. Why is this important? Just a bibliography could have done, because the last thing is a bibliography of all authoritative manuscript and print versions. In addition to a bibliography, why do I also need a checklist of all the manuscripts? Any common sense there? Anybody in the class? Why do we need an additional checklist of the contents of manuscript in addition to having a bibliography of all authoritative manuscripts? And prints, of course. Prints we're not talking about here, because prints anyway is easily searchable. The problem's really with the manuscript images. We have a detailed bibliography of the manuscript images. Additionally, we have a checklist. Why? Nobody can give me the answer to this? Are you all listening to what I'm saying even? In addition to a bibliography of the manuscripts, why do we need a checklist of all manuscripts in this project, in this knowledge site?
And we can find easily.
We can also find it easily if we have a bibliography. That's what bibliographies are for. That you have a clear idea of what book has been referred to and what article has been suggested, etc. Whatever. We have a checklist because, like I was saying, by the time we were creating this, we did not know how to create image searchable content. So every checklist of the manuscript is hyperlinked to the respective image of the manuscript. This is some kind of a bypass that we created. But if you can start creating some kind of a tool which reads images, you can bypass this particular point, because then it will also read up in the bibliography and search engine itself. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Yes? Anybody? Yes, no, whatever? What's your answer?
Ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, yes, please ask. Who's asking? Please also
Ma'am,
mention
can
your name. I am not looking at the screen.
ma'am, I'm Devasis.
Yeah,
Ma'am, can you repeat the part why? What is the difference between checklist and bibliography? Why we need uh, both at the same time?
if you look at the plain text, both the lists will look same to you. We have a bibliography of all the manuscripts and prints. Now prints for the time being you forget, because prints anyway you understand, it's not going to create confusion. We have a detailed bibliography of all the manuscripts that are there in this knowledge site. Additionally, we have a checklist also. So when you look at it like a plain text, it seems that the content is similar. But we additionally needed the checklist because we could not create a digital tool which is image readable. So in the checklist, we hyperlinked every image of the manuscript to that checklist content. Now have you understood?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I did.
Yeah, but in case you actually end up creating your own digital tool which ends up reading images, you can bypass this particular checklist. This you don't have to do. This is a brief idea about who were the team who were working in this project, and you can get it done differently also. You can read it up. You can read it up later. Now is not the time to talk to you about what SCTR in Jadavpur University does. Now we'll specifically talk about Vichitra. Here we have a user guide. In this user guide, it teaches you actually how to go about working the entire knowledge site. And it's actually different. On the work front, it seems apparently that it's a website, so we have to go from page to page. But when you really start working on your own research, you'll understand how difficult it is. We do have a quick guide, a user manual, and system requirements. Let us quickly take a look into what are the different fragments we broke it into. Should I send this link to your chat box so you can refer to it later also? I think I should do that. In case you want, you can read it up later on. These are important things even you need to do. Please understand why this is important. In your quick guide, the way we thought about it, we first have to give some kind of keyboard convention. That's because we're not just working in English, we're also working in Bangla, we're working in Hindi. In your case, you'd be working with Assamese. And we work on systems which do not come embedded with some kind of a vernacular keyboard. So we are using an English keyboard, but we're using it to translate it to some other language. So it's important that you tell your audience or whoever is reading your website, going through your website, what is the keyboard convention that you have used. If you are not understanding, let me know, because at this point, every point I mention, you have to tell me a yes or a no. One, because I cannot see if you can understand, I'm on a different page, and two, because these are very technical things that I want you to go through. Do you understand why the keyboard conventions are important? Yes, class? Hello, are you all there?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you understood why the keyboard conventions are important?
Ma'am, can you repeat? We
Yeah.
can hear you. We can't hear you properly.
Oh, you can't hear me properly. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we are using the same network also.
Sorry, you are doing what?
Ma'am, we are using the campus network, so we can't hear you
Yeah,
properly.
understood. There is some network problem there. Okay, I'll repeat this. Your user's guide should technically begin with something called keyboard conventions. That is because all of us are using computers, laptops, desktops, big tablets, whatever, where the keyboard is originally in English. We are going to use that same keyboard to convert our content to either Bangla or Assamese or Hindi, whatever the case might be. Now, it is important to have keyboard conventions. One, because your entire team has worked on it in a certain way. You have used yuktakshars in a certain way. How have you inserted the yuktakshars? It's important to know. Now, you might ask me that, okay, we have created it and we have uploaded it on the website. Why should we tell the audience our keyboard conventions? They do not need to type as much as we have typed. Then why do we need to place the keyboard convention? Can anybody tell me? Your team already can sit together, decide on keyboard conventions, type your entire content in whatever Indian vernacular and upload it on your knowledge site. Why do you need to declare your keyboard convention to the audience? What does your common sense say? Nobody, this is easy. This is very easy. Why do you need to declare the keyboard conventions?
Ma'am,
Yeah, say.
ma'am, if audience do not know uh, what actually how to type a certain word,
Exactly.
ma'am, are you
Because,
listening?
yes, I am.
I am also facing network problems, ma'am.
Yes, I can hear you, Debashish. I can hear you. Please say.
Yes, audience won't know how to type a certain word.
That is true.
In the Roman script keyboard, I guess the
That
English
is
keyboard.
that is true. It's not just about audience won't know how to type a certain word. Please understand that this is not just a website where you press a control F, which is your embedded search tool, and therefore you just locate a word. In this knowledge site, we're probably going to locate bigger things, such as different versions of the same text, different edited formats. So the audience has to do a whole lot of typing within this knowledge site. And if the searchers and the searchables convention of keyboard does not match, then the results will not yield any positivity in there. So it's important to declare the keyboard conventions outright. The next thing we do is the principles of transcription. I will read this bit. Transcriptions appear automatically to the right of the images. Transcriptions of both manuscripts and printed material can be accessed by clicking on a certain icon. You will also decide your icon. We decided this icon for the text in the bibliography or see whole table and collation sections. If there are this icon, which is a text icon, or this icon, which is an image icon, this indicates that the items have not been obtained. If any cell does not have these two icons, it means that the items have not been obtained, that there has been some problem in the search. So you have to research it. Some features of the text, such as spaces between speeches in drama, stanzas, etc., have sometimes been standardized to suit the needs of the collation software. But misprints have usually been preserved. This is very important. Supposing in a play, the play has been written in a way that there is a dialogue. After that, the way Rabindranath had written it, there is some space. Again, a dialogue has been written. That space has been removed. That space has been removed when we started typing it in our own keyboard conventional way. Why has that space been removed? If there is this unnecessary
Ma'am,
space,
ma'am,
yeah.
ma'am, can you little bit more zoom in that
Sorry?
it's not visible and we are not we cannot follow. Hello?
Sorry, I can't hear what you're
Yes, ma'am.
saying. Yeah, what are you saying? I can't hear. Who is speaking?
And we are not able to follow you with the text.
You're not able to follow what I'm saying. Should I repeat it? That's what you're saying. I can't hear you.
Uh, you can do one thing that you can little bit more zoom in with the website.
Sorry?
Because the texts are not clear. Texts are not clear, ma'am. In the website.
Oh, in the website, the texts are not clear.
You can do little bit more zoom in,
Can you see now?
then we can follow. Yes, ma'am. Now it is visible.
Okay. Thank you for mentioning this to me. I am saying, I am referring to this bit. Some features of the text, such as spaces between speeches in drama or stanzas, they have sometimes been standardized to suit the needs of the collation software, but misprints have usually been preserved. The question is why? First question is, if there is a space between two dialogues in a play in the way Rabindranath had written it, why did we have to remove that space? That is my first question. We have removed such extra spaces. We have standardized it to suit the needs of the collation software. But the question is, why have we removed the spaces? And the next question is, if there has been a misprint, we have not removed the misprint and corrected it. We have kept the misprints like it was. So we have preserved all misprints. Both the questions follow up with the third question, why? Why do you think we have removed all spaces and standardized the text? And why have we preserved the misprints? Anybody?
No idea, ma'am.
Someone's speaking. Please say. No, it's not a question of copyright at all. The misprints needs to be preserved because supposing you are putting it in the collation software to figure out the differences between two edited versions, then you really have to understand why the second edition was brought out. The second edition to an earlier edition can be brought out for multiple reasons. One, because there have been too many, technical errors, such as misprints, punctuation errors, which needed to be corrected. Secondly, a second edition or a third edition could also have come out because the author wants to change the content of what was there in the earlier edition. And so if you see that the first edition and the second edition looks the same because we at our end have rectified all misprints, the collation software will yield results which will show you that both the editions are the same. Then why was the second edition even brought out? How would you answer that question? So that you do not have any confusion as to why a later edition has been brought out or how a later edition is different from an earlier edition, it was important that we kept all misprints intact. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known if a later edition has been brought out because there has been a technical error, such as punctuation error, misprint, whatever, or whether the author has paradigmatically shifted from his authorship position and written something else which was not present in or which existed differently in the earlier edition. Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
But spaces we have categorically removed. Because if there has been a change in the space pattern in the second edition, and because of the differences in spaces, the collation software keeps showing you differences, that is cumbersome. So if there has been extra spaces in the manuscript, while creating plain text of that, we have removed all spaces, but we have preserved all misprints. Okay, we have created all manuscript transcriptions in two versions. We have done a page-by-page transcription. We have done a page-by-page transcription of the whole manuscript volume with signs to indicate changes, deletions, later insertions, etc. And we have done a separate filtered transcription of each item in its final reading in that manuscript. What does this mean? Anybody? Every manuscript transcription has been provided in two versions. One in which every rectification shows, and one in which the rectifications are not shown. Rectifications are hidden. You all know how to work in Microsoft Word? Or mostly how to work in Microsoft Word? Do you remember seeing a review button over there where you can track change?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, in track changes also this exists. After you track change, you can see it in two ways. You can see the rectifications that have been suggested by turning track change on, or you can see the final version where the changes will be incorporated, but you cannot see the changes. You only see the final version. Can you understand what I'm talking about? It's a very common Microsoft Word feature in track changes mode. When you turn track changes on and you make any rectifications, there are two ways of seeing it. You can see it with the rectifications, or you can see a final rectified version without seeing the rectifications done. Accordingly,
Ma'am.
we have done both the versions of the manuscripts. We have done a page by page transcription of the entire manuscript, one in which the changes are indicated, changes, deletions, later additions, whatever. We have created a set of symbols as any editor does. And we also have rendered a separate filtered transcription of each item, which is some kind of a final reading in the manuscript. You see, this is the background work that needs to be done in any digital humanities project, and we still have not entered into the real project. We're still doing only that. Just give me a minute. I will have to take this call. হ্যাঁ স্যার, না স্যার একটা ক্লাস নিচ্ছি। ঠিক আছে, আমি নিজেই ফোন করবো আপনাকে স্যার। Yeah, I'm saying this is not even the project in itself. This is some kind of a background to the project that needs to be done so that the project can be done successfully. And this is the amount of work that needs to be included in any background work of a digital humanities project. So these are the different kinds of text. When we have just this, it means the text has been deleted. When we have this sign, it means some text has been newly inserted. Inserted where? This is a very important question. Where has a text been deleted? Where has a text been inserted? In edition 1 or edition 2? What does your idea about it say? When we mean deleted text or inserted text for the first two, we mean what? Text has been deleted from the edition 1 or text has been deleted from edition 2?
2, ma'am.
Yeah, and why?
Because first edition is the
Is the standard, is the edition
Yes.
with which we will create our comparisons. So we have done nothing to the first edition. In the second edition, we will see this kind of markups coming, which is why you need to understand how to mark it up in your text. This is interesting. This can exist in which edition? 1 or 2 or both? This is 3 plus signs, which we used to mean illegible text. What handwriting has been used is it has either faded away or it is so clumsy we could not read it. And when I mean we, it just doesn't mean that I could not read it or my immediate partner sitting next to me could not read it. It means that the entire community of workers who were working in the project could not read it. It can happen because of wear and tear of the manuscript paper. It can happen because the handwriting itself is so clumsy or congested we could not read it. It can happen because of different reasons. It can happen because some kind of a bookworm or termite might have damage the paper in itself, so there is a hole in the paper. Basically, we could not read the text. Should this exist in edition 1 or edition 2 or both?
In both, ma'am.
Yeah, and why? Why can this exist in both? How will the collation engine figure this out, figure this problem out then? And if there is a problem with the collation engine in trying to decipher illegible text, why have we retained it in both the versions, edition 1 and edition 2, E1 and E2? Can you guess the answer? Otherwise, I'll tell you.
You tell them.
Yeah, because illegible text is that problem which may or may not exist in the text. It may or may not exist in the text, and some bit of the problem might rest with the programmers or the people who are working with the text later. If a text has been deleted in second edition, it is something that the author and printer and publisher have done. If some text has been inserted in E2, it is something that the printer and the publisher and the author has done. But for illegible text, it could be a problem with the author, or it could be a problem with the keeper of the text with whom the text remains, such as the library where it was stored for so long. Or by the time I am handling the text as a handler, some problem has come at my end. It's not necessarily a problem at the level of the author, printer, publisher. Can you understand what I'm saying? Yes, class, can you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So illegible text is a problem that can exist at the level of the author, at the level of the printer publisher, or it can exist at the level of any later stakeholder, including me as a reader who's beginning to work on the text now. It could be possible that मेरे हाथ से text गिर गया, उसके ऊपर चाय गिर गया. Something has happened at my end, as a result of which I cannot decipher it. It may not be a problem with the text in itself, which is why this problem can exist in both the editions. Next is this, a text whose position is uncertain. Why is this required? In what kind of literary genre would this be required? Text whose position is uncertain. Can this exist in a novel? We don't know where a text is. In what kind of literary genre can this problem exist?
Ma'am, text position means
Something has been written, but whether it has been written in the earlier line or later line cannot be understood from the handwriting itself. Probably it's hanging in between. ऐसा नहीं होता कभी कभी. So I'm asking you, what kind of literary genre can have this problem? There is one line and there is another line, and in between a certain word is inserted, but we clearly cannot understand from the manuscript handwriting whether the word should exist in the earlier line or the later line. Can that problem exist in a novel? Can that problem exist in a drama? Can that problem exist in a poem? Correct. Correct. This problem is specific to a poem. Who answered yes? Is that Pranchi? Very good. Very good. I appreciate. This is a specific problem which can exist in the case of poems, because the poet has been writing in some kind of a fluid handwriting, and then the poet may have deleted a certain word and inserted a certain word later at the side of the page. And when you readily look, it has been inserted in such a space in the side, you don't understand whether it's in the earlier line or the next line. Such problem has to be ascertained a different kind of a symbol. This is another problem in which text has been transposed later on. What does that mean? Should this exist in E1 or E2? And what is the kind of problem mentioned over here? First question is, should this problem exist in E1 or E2 or both? Text which has been transposed. Yes? Okay, are you all there with me? Are you understanding? Are you finding it very difficult or easy or what? This cannot exist in both. This has to exist in E2, because you wouldn't know if it has been transposed unless you compare it with an earlier version or with an existing version. Therefore, any transposition of text has to be happening in the later editions, E2, E3, and so on. This is comparatively easy. It's an underlined text. The underline does not exist in the text itself. I have added that underline for some reason. So that means this. Otherwise, I can just underline it. Underlining a text is not difficult. But if I just underline a text, it could mean that this line was underlined in the manuscript itself. But here it does not mean that. It means that we have added the underline for some reason, for some highlight, whatever. Here is the question which I was asking last time when Pranchin said both. This means that two juxtaposed versions of the same text. That both the texts are there and it appears as if both the texts have been juxtaposed. Just transposition cannot be visible from the first edition. Transposition has to be understood from the later edition. But we understand that some juxtaposition has happened on both the editions. How do we understand that?
We have to compare
Exactly. We have to use the collation engine and compare and see that both the texts have been juxtaposed. So that means what? How do we know both the texts have been juxtaposed? How many editions do we need minimum for this thing to happen? Half of it is pure mathematics. It's not even literature. Mathematics in the sense of being, mathematics as common sense. How many versions do we need minimum in order to say that two juxtaposed versions of the same text can be found? Minimum, how many editions do we need?
2.
3. How would you know if both the versions are juxtaposed unless you still compare it with another version? From here on, you will see that any particular literary work has to exist minimum in 3 editions. This means that the status of the text is such that retention of text has happened, which was earlier marked for deletion. Why should this happen? If it was earlier marked for deletion, if I have, as a programmer or as a digital humanist, I have forgotten to delete it, I can come back and delete it. The backend is with me. I have the power to edit the backend. Why would I have to mark it that retention of text has happened where it was earlier marked for deletion? Yes? You see, sometimes in the manuscript, the author might have struck a line off or a word off, and the author might have struck the line off for 2 reasons. One, the author understands what I have written is wrong. He has struck it off and has written a new thing. Another could be that when we look at what has been struck off, it still shows the kind of dilemma or the confusion that existed in the mind of the author. You know, in schools, teachers used to tell us, even if you make a mistake, strike it off with a single line. Don't strike it off with, random lines and marks. Remember? That was because teachers wanted to see what was the confusion that was happening. Why did we think of that mistake? And now when we are rectifying it, how do we think of it as in the new light? That happens when we see that too many striking off has happened in a single text. Probably the poet or the author or the dramatist was confused. He was writing and then deleting it and again writing and again striking it off. And we want to look into the confusion. That will give us some idea about what was going on in his mind. In such cases, all deletions, we cannot randomly just strike them off from our text itself. We have to retain the deletions and show the audience that this deletion has happened. The deletion itself makes a literary point. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am. I understood.
Do you want me to carry on with the rest of the list? Or do you want me to stop here because every day last 10 minutes I discuss it with the class? Or do you want me to finish this bit?
Finished.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Want me to finish this bit? Okay. The next thing is if a note, comment, instruction is placed in the margin area itself is placed within square brackets. But the part of the main text against which it is located in the manuscript is located by a different sign at the beginning or at the end of that part. Now, this is slightly confusing. First, read it up. Take time and read it. There can be 2 kinds of margin work happening. One margin work could have been done by Ravindranath himself. Another margin work could have been done by the digital humanities project workers. If any margin work has happened at the level of the author himself, then the entire margin content is placed within square brackets within the main text, because that is the author's own margin work. But if we are doing some kind of margin work against a main text, the main text does not have the margin, then we will include it either at the beginning of that particular stanza or space or at the end of it by giving this mark. And what is the difference between these 2 marks? Mark and a space, mark without a space. Can you see? This is a mark followed by a space. This is a mark without a space. If there is a mark followed by a space, it means this margin work belongs originally to the author himself. If there is a margin work which has not been done by the author, then there is no space. Tell me if you've understood.
I have understood.
The next thing is, this is complex, where the original author or scribe has changed the position of a small amount of text. using an arrow, line, or asterisk. Remember how many times we put an arrow mark and we take a same text, same content of the text up and place it somewhere else? Or we don't have space in the manuscript where we are writing in that line, so we write it elsewhere and then we put an arrow mark and show. Remember as children we used to put this mark and this mark, upward and downward signs, to include more content in the text by using arrow signs. Sometimes we use arrow signs, sometimes we put some line or asterisk. Rabindranath had also done that. Now, if that section has been placed upward, we have used this sign. Now, sometimes there is space within that destination only, and the author scribbles at that space only. Then it is this sign. If it was a downward, we have used this sign. And if it is completely at the bottom, where an arrow has been used to designate some text, it is this. Till this much is okay, but the problem is when there are multiple kinds of text migrations. In some page, maybe there's something at the top and something at the margin and something down, and everything has to be incorporated. Then we used upward or downward signs, and we followed it up with a number both there and here. So if there is a 1 and upward here and a 1 and upward there, this should relate to that. If there is a 2 and say downward here and a 2 and downward here, then this should relate to that. Have you understood? Have you understood? Okay. This is for words and smaller lines. But if a large chunk has been replaced, it has been completely struck off and then written separately, we have just used an upward or a downward arrow and created the plain text accordingly. And in such case, we have not put any mark in the original location because it's a big text. So we know that the entire bit has been struck off and it now exists down or it now exists up. Accordingly, if it exists down, we put a downward arrow. If it exists up, we put an upward arrow. And we do not put any mark in the original location because it's evident. A large chunk has been deleted. This is some kind of a line break or paragraph break, as in this sign. But it is a line break and a paragraph break that we have created. It is not evident whether this line break or paragraph break that exists, whether it existed in the original manuscript or not. So maybe the way we are writing, our Word page where we are writing or our HTML page where we are writing finishes in a certain space. So we have created that space and we have written in a different paragraph or stanza. This does not exist in the manuscript level. Here at the beginning of a new paragraph, we have created that paragraph. We have inserted this sign. Have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
This bit we will start taking up tomorrow. How to browse through manuscript collections. We have just about some 3-4 minutes left. I will take any questions. Cameras on, please. Was this class slightly more difficult than the other theoretical classes? But this is what you finally have to do when you start working on your own projects. I think by tomorrow end, you will understand. You'll at least get a glimpse of what is to be done. And so many conventions you have to pre-work before you start working on the project itself. This is the pre-work that goes behind working in any digital humanities project. So yes, anybody has any questions or comments, observations, queries? Tomorrow we are again meeting at 12. And Partho sir has given me an idea of the project works. Group A is presenting on archiving. Group B is presenting on digital tools. Group C is presenting on WYSIWYG editors. Group D is presenting on history of digital humanities. Okay, any questions?
Ma'am.
Yeah, say.
Ma'am, we have selected the topic WYSIWYG editor.
Yeah.
Can we do a little bit more modification, little bit more specific, like WYSIWYG editor with specific reference to Wikimedia
Yeah. You can.
or Wikimedia in vernacular languages or
Yeah.
Assamese language. We'll let you know about that, but
By
we have
tomorrow.
decided the WYSIWYG editor, and as a whole, WYSIWYG editor will cover a lot of, I think. That is why
Right.
we are trying to be more specific.
Right. You can be more specific. That's actually a better thing to do because you anyway have just 20 to 25 minutes to speak, followed by 5 to 10 minutes of interaction. So becoming specific is one of the best things that you can do.
Yes, ma'am.
Finalize it to me by tomorrow, that will be fine.
Thank you,
Next
ma'am.
3 days, back to back, every day we'll meet from 12 to 1. And tomorrow I'll finish up with the Bichitra project.
Ma'am,
Yeah, say. Group A and B will present this Friday, 25th. And Group C and D will present on Saturday, 26th.
okay, ma'am.
Okay, have a good day then. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Same to you.
Bye.